Hey, parents of eighth grade language arts students. Here's another language arts review and preview. Once this gets pulled up, there we go. Let's see if I can make this go full screen. Maybe not. That's all right. So this week, we had a really good week, honestly. It was a week where we had to just kind of put our head down and just kind of work through some tough things. We have some pre-assessments this week. We had iReady this week, and so kids came out on the other end, maybe a little bit exhausted, but better because of it. We have some good data that we're going to be able to use moving forward, and I'm pretty excited about some of the results of those pre-assessments. So let me take a minute to go over those things with you. Our memoir pre-assessment was on Tuesday when kids got back. They took a substantial amount of time, about 45 minutes, to draft, to plan out, draft, and edit and revise a personal story about themselves. I got a chance to read through all those. There's some really interesting, really powerful stories that I read, and we have some really positive things to look forward to in our writing, and some things we definitely have to work on. We look specifically at the areas of craft, elaboration, theme, and structure were the four areas. And so what you'll see in the grade book is a score under that pre-assessment that's either a 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. That tells you that the student either met all of the criteria that we were looking for under each of those categories: structure, craft, theme, and elaboration. And if they got a 0, that meant that I didn't see evidence in any of those areas. So anywhere between there, 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Unfortunately, I think it might pop up as a letter grade. That was not intentional. It should pop up just as a number 0 through 4. I think if there is a 0, it pops up as an incomplete. So it's one of those technical details of the grade book that I don't love, but it exists. So let me know if you ever have questions about the grade book. I'd be glad to answer them. Sometimes what you see is actually a little different than what I see, and it might not be the way I intended it to be seen. Then Wednesday and Thursday, we took iReady. Kids had some time to finish up on Thursday. I think we still have a few people who haven't finished up yet, but they can finish up early next week in seminar. Try to get everybody finished there. We take that 3 times a year, so this was the first test. I had a lot of kids asking what the average score was when they got finished. And I always tell them that I don't want them to be concerned with what the average score is necessarily. I probably would want to know too. I get it. But their score is their score. And if they're below average or above average, there's nothing they can necessarily do about that in the moment. We want to make sure that we're just focusing on strengthening our weak areas. And if we have lots of strengths, challenging ourselves and pushing ourselves even further. So although I understand the desire to understand where they're at based on the average, I would much rather they just kind of focus on what they can improve and focusing on what they can control. I do have a chart in my classroom that I'll show them next week that kind of places them in a certain grade level, but that also can be kind of discouraging for some kids when they might see that they're in the 4th or 5th grade level. They might get kind of down on themselves. So I enjoy that conversation because it helps them to see the reality of their situation, but sometimes kids can take it hard. So we try to be kind of delicate with that. I'm losing track of days. Thursday, we did a 9/11 web quest, and that took kids through a variety of links, videos, articles, some different things they could research revolving around the events on September 11th, 2001. And that was a powerful activity. I think kids got a lot out of that. And then just today, we built on that by reading some excerpts from a book called 8 Blocks Away. And it's from students at a law school nearby the World Trade Center, and they all wrote about their experiences. And so there's some really, really interesting and thought-provoking content that we pushed through today. Some of it was pretty challenging to hear and to read, but kids were very engaged. I'll give a shout out to my first block today, my 1-2. They did an excellent job. It was one of the better blocks that I've had of just engagement and focus. I was really impressed by that. And 7-8 did well also, but my 1-2, I'm just saying specifically, did a great job. All right. Next week, we are getting into our memoir unit. We feel like it's kind of been a while. We've had to do a lot of prep work to get into it, but we're just getting fully started on our memoir unit, and that's going to include lots of brainstorming, please think over the weekend and help your student be thinking about some stories that have been transformative, informative for them. We want to be able to write lots next week without having kids pause and say, I don't know what to write about, or nothing interesting has ever happened to me. So we want to make sure that we're like those memories are clear in our minds. We're going to incorporate the 16 personality quiz that they took this week as homework. That's just a free online thing that shows them kind of where they fall on a variety of personality traits. I enjoy it, and it helps us to see a little bit more about ourselves. So you can talk to them about what the results of that were. And I also want to include the plants that they're growing at home. They should have brought a seed home and planted it, and it should be sprouting by now, I would assume. I have a few things planned with those plants. So if something happens to them, I would ask that you maybe try to replace it with another plant. They're all secret plants, but I promise none of them are going to grow into giant cucumber vines or anything like that. So I have some things planned out for that. And then next week's our first full week, and so just a couple reminders specifically for language arts. I'm hoping that they're finishing their first book if they haven't done so already, getting into at least their second or third. I'm really pushing them through those books this year to make sure that they have lots of texts under their belt. And then something I've also kind of driven home this week is taking notes in class on things that they find important. Maybe not just something that I tell them to write down, but something that they deem to be important. That's what good students do. That's what they need to start doing as 8th graders. And then I do want them also to be paying attention to the language arts schedule of events. And so I have it posted on my board. I tell them to write down their homework each night if they have some, which they often do. And if they're not writing it down in their notebook or putting it into their phone so they remember, they need to develop a system, because I'm seeing a lot of kids who aren't getting their homework turned in. Let's see. I think that's about all I had for today. Kind of a long video here. I apologize, but please let me know if you have any questions or concerns. I'd be glad to answer any of those for you. Let me know if there's any questions to the grade book, things you see there. Yeah. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Thank you.